Welcome to It Tastes Like Burning, a completely nonsensical podcast about volunteer fire departments with overrated opinions and completely unrelated facts and or opinions that probably shouldn't be followed or advised, but you're more than welcome to laugh at.
I'm Jesse,
I'm Matt.
and thanks for tuning into our podcast. We hope it's as fun for you as it is for us.
Theoretically.
So one of the things that we're doing, that we're working on as the board of the department, is marketing campaign, and we're trying to figure out, because historically, fire departments in general, and specifically volunteer fire departments, suck at internet presence, marketing, recruitment, retention, which is what all that's designed to drive.
And it's not just a problem volunteer, though, because you can prove it literally in our area and in our major cities. They cannot bring people in to work in the fire service. So if you're having a hard time filling paid fire positions and volunteers are having a hard time filling volunteer positions, it's not a volunteer problem. It's a marketing problem. Our message is wrong somewhere.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with you take a guy that's my age, mid-40s, most of them aren't looking for something to do. They already know what they want to do. They're doing whatever their hobby is. So you've got to look at those young guys, and I don't know that you get the young guys interested in anything that's not attached to a phone.
Well, and again, this is the same premise. Your middle-aged guy is married, kids. The kids go to 400 different things now. They're theoretically active in a church. They have 500 other hobbies, bass boat, family, on and on and on. Then you combine that with trying to compete with Netflix, YouTube, whatever stuff that there is out there online. And then the fact that most Americans are working at a bare minimum of 40 hours a week, if not a lot more. And then you combine that with the fact that the amount of time that it takes at even a remotely slow department, it's a significant time sink, much less if you actually get to a busy volunteer or paid fire department for that fact. And it does. It becomes this point where what can you compete against to be able to value the commodity of their time? And retention's a problem, but it's a different problem. You got to get people to physically walk in the door first before you can even begin to
address
consider
that. Yeah.
So the basic concept here is to say that volunteer fire departments in our area are terrible at recruiting. We've been terrible at recruiting. I can prove that we're terrible at recruiting. And the amount of time, energy, and effort that we've spent recruiting isn't the right path. The answer doesn't come from within the organization. It has to come from somewhere else. And this is where you literally go and find someone that says, hey, I know how to do recruiting.
Or at least, bare minimum, I know how to market to people your key demographics that you're looking for. So, Forrest, what are your thoughts on all that? Because I know that it's bound to be relevant to some of your past experiences.
Coming from the lack of recruiting side, I know when I started looking into the department, there was no recruiting on the department's end. It was all how bad I wanted to find answers. It was all how much time I was willing to put in to figure out how to apply to a station, let alone who to talk to or when meetings were, and vice versa. Websites are great. Websites are usually the first place people go to just because everything's on their phone. Websites are only good when they work. So there was nothing on websites. And I personally only found an application by digging through a Twitter threads and trying to find a link somehow through Twitter.
Approximately how long did that take for you to just say, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. To the point of you're actually like, damn it, I'm trying to join, but I can't find anything about them. What was the tentative timeline
I
there?
remember three different days that I would try and look for stuff. I came up to this firehouse. I think it was Station 1 just because I knew it was by the high school. And talked to someone specifically who directed me to a website, which was, again, the dead end that it was.
Did you actually talk to someone? And they gave you a website to go to?
They said to go on to the website.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that in itself is worth it.
Well, I mean, I had a similar experience me trying to join, and if I wouldn't have been a 20-year veteran of a volunteer fire department when I showed up and knew that somewhere there's a chief around this place, I need to talk to that guy, because he wants all the people he can find. He just doesn't have any time to go look for them. I come in and the junior cadet says, well, I think we have applications maybe, but I don't know if we're taking any right now. So,
And the irony in that is that even I have a disaster horror story trying to get onto our organization. When I first came up, it took 3 business meetings for them to even vote on me. I was here, passed the background, did the interview. They wouldn't vote on me. I had made my decision up and told at the time one of the senior guys I'd been talking to the whole time that if you don't vote me on this one, you obviously don't need me. So you guys figure out what you're going to do. That took 3 months. I was voted on month number 4.
Yeah. And I hear stories all the time in departments that they literally vote no on everybody's first round to see who comes back. Well, I think 30 years ago, yeah, they'd come back. Today, they piss on you. They'll go do something else.
Well, here's the other thing, too, coming in. I didn't know that a department's firehouse was based on living address.
Yeah.
So I went just to all the firehouses, kind of talking to people, seeing who I meshed with better to see who I would even try to apply to sit on. Because I couldn't find any literature based on, hey, your firehouse is designated based on where you live.
Yeah, and that's a general thing that's for the most part, but
I don't know if that's just ignorance of not knowing about volunteer departments.
realize I think you could conceivably, if the standards of participation were low enough, you could volunteer at a department 100 miles from here and show up once a month, and they'd probably be glad to have you. I mean,
There's a neighboring department to us that's found actually great success in a system that actually works that way. Not quite 100 miles, but they have the luxury and took full advantage of being the first volunteer fire department outside of a major metroplex. And they actively recruit inside the metroplex for volunteers. So when they're recruiting and I'll go as far as to say their marketing campaign actually hits hundreds of thousands of people. And their system is they come in, they interview, they turn in an application, they do the background check, and they ultimately get voted onto the department. Well, how do you participate on an organization when you may live 60 miles away? They drive in for shifts.
Yeah.
And they have a shift-based schedule. The irony in it now is that they have the highest total membership of any organization in our area, in our county at least. And they have 60 active firefighters off of that. And their chiefs really reap the rewards of actually spending the time, energy, and effort of recruiting people way outside of his district. And his payoff on it is that they actually work schedules. Yeah. Okay, what if they don't sign up for schedules? They don't stay on the department. Yeah. He clears the slot, he gets the gear back, and he brings another one in.
And you still have your core base of people that are living there and volunteering there because that's where home is. And you still get those extra people to fill in those holes, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, it's but the town itself is relatively small. Their homers are quite a bit smaller in total population versus their travelers.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty scary number. So I think it's 15 to 45
Ooh.
is where they're at. So
Yeah,
they
3
have
to 1.
15 local, but the 45 are the ones that commute in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm more than likely that number's wrong. I'm sure it's plus or minus 10 any direction.
So, in your mind, Forrest, what do we need to be doing to make that a better process? Because I know what I think, but
The retention part?
no,
No,
the recruitment part.
recruiting.
I think that retention discussion you worry about that when you get to the point where you got a wait list.
Recruiting, on the side of recruiting, I can guarantee you that most people wouldn't put in more than a Google search on trying to figure out how to join something. If they don't feel like they're wanted, or even that a organization wants to accept new members, no one's going to care enough to put in their time. People have a low enough attention span as it is. They're not going to put in extra time to try and find somewhere that doesn't seem to want to accept people.
So for your ability to physically connect to people through Google, does it make sense to actually try and use something like Google Words or some other advertising mechanism just to help draw in that extra traffic a little bit quicker? Or
The hardest thing right now is depends on the age of recruits you're trying to get. Anybody coming right out of high school that's even thinking about doing a paid department, none of them are on Facebook. None of them really use Google. So you're looking at Instagram, and they're on the back end of Instagram. You're looking more at TikTok. And that's all visual stuff. You're looking at people that have been in paid departments and are retired. Then you're looking at going through things like email campaigns or Facebook ads. Even Google AdSense will still target those individuals. But there's such a...
have you actually seen any great success with an email campaign?
Depends on what the actual goal of the email campaign is. If it's just to drive back traffic to a site or to a landing page, they're very effective. If it's to sell items, those just get thrown right into your junk pile.
No, again, it's not to sell a dang thing. It's strictly to draw people to the organization.
The hard part is making sure that you aren't part of some sort of continual emailing list of just random blogs or emails that people don't really care about.
So I never really, because I know how I handle junk email, but I'm also part of an organization. So I'm not looking for that email, and I'm not considering that email. But I have looked at maybe doing a targeted mail out. So the question is do you blanket the entire city? Well, that's expensive. Plus the return rate on that's whatever. But what if you actually do something a lot more targeted, where you actually target every house in a specific neighborhood as the trial run, just to see?
And say, we're looking for volunteers in your neighborhood.
Right. And the concept there is that, we'll just say that it's a 100-house neighborhood, approximately 2.6 people per house. So realistically, you're not sending out 200 letters. You're sending out one letter. And if you even had 0.5% of a return out of that, I mean, you're literally talking about 2 or 3 people that joined off of that, which would be phenomenal.
The easiest thing to do in that aspect, and it all depends on how Facebook ad generator is going to be changed because of Apple. If you want to find 18 to 30-year-olds within a certain new neighborhood or a new complex being built, you can target them individually and not have to worry about sending them mail or emails. You can target them through Facebook, which will put up ads through their Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook that'll target them directly to a landing page or website. And you can even narrow it down even further into anybody interested in military, interested in EMT work, interested in medical students, interested in.
He's coming to the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Those are the
So,
things
like, our
that you
key-
can easily find.
Our key demographics is literally 18 to 80, blind, crippled, or crazy.
You're going to have to narrow it down even further.
Yeah, we'll take any of those. Heavy on the crazy.
Yeah, no, that's oh my god.
That's an easier thing to.
What's the cost of let's I'm just going to make up a simple numbers. We'll say 26 to 45-year-old men or women, okay? What's the cost to try and target we'll just say the city with 10,000 people? What's the cost there?
So if you're able to narrow down the hard thing is with using Facebook marketing is if you get too narrow in your audience, like 10,000, that is a very small audience. Your return rate versus how much you're paying is very minimum. When I do campaigns, I'm looking at about 1 million people,
Okay.
and you're looking at somewhere around 20 cents a click. So if I'm pushing out, let's say $500 for these next 2 weeks, I'm looking at spending $500 and getting, 500 times 20 amount of clicks onto that landing page. So the hard part is you can set up a campaign and narrow it down to your city of 40,000 people and give it a budget of $500 for 2 weeks
I think
and not
an
pay your
easier way
budget.
to do this.
But you cannot even use that money you allocated because it won't find that amount of people.
I mean, at least you could try and target specifically into your county. Okay. Yeah. So in our case, we're around 70,000. Okay. And I mean, for what you're talking about, that makes that particular problem a little easier. Because I can actually see what you're talking about when you say that having something too narrow, trying to hit a very specific 10,000 people might be actually pretty tough. Yeah, I don't know. I never even really considered trying to go that route. It makes the most sense.
It won't be as expensive as trying to hit 1 million people, but the return, if you're going to, do an A and B testing based on me trying to hit 10,000 versus me hitting 1 million.
As stupid as it sounds, you don't want to hit 1 million people.
Right, I'm just talking like actual hard numbers. You're going to get a hard number, a better return on trying to hit the 1 million people as opposed to trying to hit 10,000. Because if I try and hit 10,000 and I have a $500 budget, I could just not be able to use that $500 because there
What's
isn't
a
enough
million
people.
person budget?
It just depends on how much you're trying to, pay for a click and how long you're running an ad. We can run an ad for 2 weeks. We can run an indefinite ongoing ad, which everything just continues to rack up. You have to monitor your click cost.
I think we were talking about this earlier, but I don't know if we were recording yet or not. Just in general, on a scale of easy, medium, hard, ridiculously hard, how hard is it to target people for a volunteer fire organization with even trying to consider going this route?
I wouldn't say the hard part. The majority of work you put in is on the front end on creating your ideal person that you're trying to hit. You have to really narrow them down into interests, dislikes, places maybe they visited, companies maybe they like or shop at a lot, because Facebook monitors all that.
That's actually not that hard to do.
It's hard's the wrong word, but the amount of work is on that end. Because once you create those, let's say 4 ideal people, you can cater each campaign ad to run to 4 different campaign ads based on that individual you created, and send out 4 different ones, which now is going 4 times further, as opposed to me just putting one individual person. Because I may meet 5 out of these 10 requirements, and it'll come to me, but you may only reach 4 of those requirements, in which case you won't ever see that ad. So, but if I do 4 different ads, I may hit 5, but only 4 of one, where you may hit 5 of the second kind of person, in which case you'll get that ad that I won't get. But we're both being targeted. So the hard part is there isn't a set amount of money on the campaign that I've done to say that $100 is going to get you 10 people. $100 is maybe going to get you in front of 5 people and turn around and get you one person to show up. But it all really depends on how much time you put into creating those ideal people that you want to actually cater to.
If you wanted to try and build a campaign on this, because at the end of the day, it's a complete journey. It's completely unknown. You know, it's fresh open water. What sort of timeline should an organization truly kind of invest in something like this? Because there's obviously a learning curve associated with it. And, you know, just simply allocating that I don't have more than $70 to spend on this probably doesn't sound like it's going to be realistic. Sounds like, I'm not saying you need to dump $500,000 into this either, or even 10,000, but you need to have some money to put into it, but it's also a time-based return, because you got to experiment with how you're actually connecting with your community as a whole. What sort of timeline do you kind of put at this, or even a rough dollar figure? And like I said, it can't be exact. I understand that.
Well, the hard part is we've only talked about the marketing aspect of who we're targeting. We haven't even talked about the ad itself that you're pushing out. The ad itself, you have to have some sort of, you know, eye-catching, either carousel or eye-catching single image of something that this specific one of 4 people are interested in, and it can't be the same image for all 4 people. So let's say a car, you know, firefighters putting out a car fire is not going to attract the same people that firefighters putting out a house fire or an industrial fire will attract. So you have to figure out those 4 different ads, figure out what word and wording you're going to be using, because there's certain words that you have to go through that Facebook will block. You can't mention you. Like the word you will actually lower your reach for campaign ads. So you have to go through that research. And once you get those 4 ads running, you need to be continually monitoring them and seeing how they work. If, you know, C and D aren't working, there's no point in you running it the rest of your campaign time.
So it sounds like a relatively complex process. At that point,
it's not something you can drop and go.
Does it make more sense to spend the time, energy, effort, and resources into just hiring a company?
I think it depends on the company and what they're offering. What they're offering you in terms of your return.
Okay.
If a company's offering you a bunch of email campaigns that they're going to send out multiple times, and like you said, you don't even look at emails, then you're paying for something that a majority of people, at least in your demographic, aren't.
Well, I'm
watch.
talking very specifically about the true social media outreach. Is there companies out there that strictly focus on doing marketing for you on that?
There are companies that you can find companies that are literally focused on just driving traffic to a landing page.
Okay. And what sort of, I mean, again, you know, we're not talking about Nike here. What sort of budget should you even consider to try and tackle something like that?
Me personally, I would run my own targeted landing page campaign. Otherwise, you're going to be spending $300, $400 a month for somebody to do something that can take you maybe 20 minutes a day. So it just depends on how valuable is your time, how valuable is the return of a possible candidate coming in. Are you willing to pay $20 by doing it yourself to have someone walk through the door? You're willing to pay $150 to have a company bring someone through the door.
So what if you're a 55-year-old man's never used social media, and this is a tentative solution to you? I mean, you're considering it. What the hell do you do then? You're trying
you
to
separate the website and the face of the organization from the campaigns.
Okay.
So you can have a company that is in charge of building the face of the company. in charge of building the website, building the outreach programs, in charge of building the Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or whatever they need to run to be able to be on the platform and relevant, to be able to at least have images that they can push out on ads. And then you can have, and they will do what they call marketing, where basically they will help pay Google to put you higher up on Google pages, and you showing up on page 1 versus page 2 or 3 is a difference of a couple $1,000s. So there's those kind of marketing campaigns where people will pay for you to do that.
Yeah, SEO.
It's all Google
SEO.
SEO rebranding, and those are very time-consuming, complex ideas that you need to be able to stay on top of. That I wouldn't recommend doing yourself unless you're going to commit full time to doing that, because you need to understand keywords, taglines, HTML code in order to be able to even rank in a Google search.
So everything that you've just talked about is a company that we're specifically looking at right now. All the, for lack of better words, all the grassroots stuff that you're talking about. They had a beautiful, very simple, website building. Here's the breakdown in cost. Social media, mass marketing.
Was this their pitch deck?
Do what?
Their pitch deck? This is what?
I have no clue. I'm not the one that's actually talked to them. But the one thing that's lacking out of all of that is very specifically what we were originally talking about, is that way to make the quantive leap from the web page to the social media, and how to drive that initiative. So to me, in my rat brain, it makes a lot of sense to, kind of obvious when you say it, and we all knew this, is you first off need to have the website, because at the end of the day, you've got to have a place for people to, at the bare minimum, stumble into. Coming out of that, it also acts as a funnel. It gives you a place for people to literally more than just stumble into. It can be a general reference for when you meet people in public, basic outreach that you're doing yourself on Facebook or whatever social media you have. But that next quantive leap of how do you make contact with people that you never meet face to face until they go through the website and then ultimately sign up. And I think for not only us, but I think for the vast majority of particularly volunteer fire departments that even considered going this route, I can assure you the vast majority do not operate this way. Never considered it.
And the good thing with the marketing company, at least doing the website, a good marketing company will have software, and I have it for my own businesses, software at least competitively to Hotjar, where if you even click on my website, I can monitor where you go on that website. I can monitor your email address and save that so I can campaign and send out emails or anything to you specifically.
I should probably add right now that most volunteer firefighters are pretty sketchy around the government, but
Yeah.
But if you come onto a website, and it's all websites, that's why
Right.
if you go visit Nike, you're going to get a Nike ad in your Gmail account, because they record your email accounts based on Google. That's why you have a Google account. So you sign in with your Gmail, go into Google, search anything up on Google. Any website you visit using that Google window is going to record your email address for later marketing. So that's a lot of stuff they can do on their back end. But in terms of doing something as specific as Facebook marketing, which goes hand in hand with Instagram, that's a whole different ideal. And
I know generally that Facebook's actually kind of facing the trail of 10,000 tears right now. But I know particularly in our community, Facebook's actually pretty vibrant. So I wouldn't just be willing to scratch Facebook off. In fact, going through Facebook right now would make directly marketing to anyone older than the age of, I'll say, 28 really easy, because everyone in this area who's on Facebook is definitely over 28. Anyone that's really under that 30, 28 years, they haven't been on Facebook in years. They're on, well, TikTok's the big one.
And I can tell you, I only ever have my Facebook account just so I can use Facebook ads.
Right.
I don't remember the last time I posted personally on Facebook, let alone gone on to check something from somebody.
But my MySpace is the bomb.
You're going to add me into your top 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, and that's the problem is that so much of this is so foreign. Because at the end of the day, short of someone having a need or a business based on this, and for full disclosure, you're definitely the first one I've ever met that does online marketing in person. I mean, I've got a business that they take care of it, whatever. Just write them a check. But as far as this is concerned, and again, we're not trying to sell anything. It's clicks are awesome, but clicks are meaningless to us. We need feet walking in the door eventually coming out of it. So the interest, yes, is nice, but the product, there's nothing to buy.
I can tell you there's a lot to buy. You're trying to get them to buy into some sort of brotherhood. You're trying to get them to buy into a reason why I should go into a burning building with some random dude. So there is an ideal of something that you are selling. You are selling a brotherhood and a commitment to one another and an opportunity to learn and grow in a department or in a work environment that can allow them to go off and branch off into being a fire marshal, a fire investigator, an EMT, or even being joining a pay department. So there is something you're selling. It just may not be the latest knick-knack, but you do need to view it as we are selling camaraderie in an aspect. It's the same reason why the Marines and the Army have ads. Everybody knows the Marines and Army are around, but they are selling an image and an idea. And that's something that, you do have to focus on, because that is one thing that when I was going around talking to other departments, is figuring out, okay, who do I at least feel comfortable sitting in a room with, let alone going into a burning room with. And that's something that's big. If I don't trust you to shoot straight with me, why am I going to trust you to be behind me when the roof's collapsing, or to come find me when I'm lost inside a room?
So for anyone that this ever does truly reach the air for, you actually just have the answer. I'm really glad that we had that answer, because I was curious where you were going to go with that. I asked that specifically to see if you were buying what we were selling, and you are. So that's the issue here is that you have young people that are legitimately interested in this. You have middle-aged men and women that are legitimately interested in this. But if you can't even remotely make the most subtle connection with them, a website that works, and your station's not staffed, business hours, how are you going to make contact with these people? You're not. So your only other option is that they be dogged and determined and continue to come back until they finally catch someone, or they give up. Or you can have a way to funnel them into your organization.
You still need somebody in the building for them to show up. That's
eventually, but I would argue that you can, if your website says, hey, if you're interested, call this number, that's at least the first step. Where, again, because you may not be able to actually have the station staffed or have the luxury of an office manager that sits here.
And I would go a step
Even
further.
A click to contact button is better than.
Well, I would go a step further, because there are phone numbers on the website, but no one's going to want. If I'm at work, I'm not going to want to call somebody. I want to find an application or at least info of come to this area once a month, because we have an open door policy this once a month. At least
Right.
I know there's an opportunity for me to meet somebody. And better yet, I have the application that at least gets my foot in the door.
Yeah. I also wonder about the disconnect when you've got, all these younger guys that are failure to launch, are still living in mom and dad's house, don't have a job. I mean, they're never going to chase something down. They obviously haven't done that, but they might find their calling in the fire service.
Yeah, well, and that's where, I'll criticize a lot of fire departments out there that you got to be real careful limiting membership to your exclusive club, because the fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, it's not about someone fitting a specific demographic. You need someone to go out and take time out of their personal life and do community service. Meanwhile, trying to accomplish whatever specific task, goal, need, scenario, resolution in the meantime. And you have no clue who's actually going to end up being some of your best people based on just literally the classic judging a book by its cover, or they're a woman, or they look funny, or they talk funny. You really do need to kind of open up your perspective and stop trying to judge people's ability to service their community.
Yeah, and that was my point. You can't just judge them by that, because it might be their calling. It might be where they want to blossom into a productive member of society, so to speak, and go that extra mile. I mean, there's a lot of drive that gets instilled in a person in a place like this, and they grow as a person.
I mean, I couldn't think. I'd have to actually write down the amount of people that we've had on this organization since I've been here that have come in as just, Joe Schmo off the street. It's my hobby, or I'm a high school kid that just graduated, or, I'm a young girl interested in this, and on. And they don't come in with the intent of ever making it a career. And just because of the uniqueness of our organization, and also the fact that we are very close to a major metropolitan area, that we can be a farm system for career firefighters. Yeah. And we have been. I bet you the number since I've been here is probably over 25.
And high school should be one of your key demographics. You have basically an intro to policing class at the high school. You have basically an intro to EMT, but you don't have anything fire related.
So I can kind of answer this, and it's going to be a cheap cop out. What you end up running into is the classic dinosaur versus new kid. Most organizations are dominated, volunteer fire departments are dominated by a handful of older guys. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of them that aren't that way, but the vast majority of volunteer organizations that I've ever personally encountered, been around, talked to, whatever, they have that set up. And it always seems like that you have the last generation's the worst. Now, they've had that same conversation for the last 10,000 years. Everyone's doomed because of the last generation, Right now, millennials and Gen Z's getting hammered, and wait another 20 years, and whoever follows them up, they're going to be the worst. And you have a hard time crossing that bridge, bringing on a whole bunch of young men and women onto an organization if your dinosaurs aren't open to that concept of, and this isn't my quote, and I'm going to toss it over because you say something fantastic to hammer that out.
I say a lot of fantastic things, but my mind won't take me to it.
It's what is a senior guy's gal's job on a volunteer fire department's
It's all of our jobs. But especially those older guys. Your only job here is to make sure there's somebody to replace you. That's it. Everything else we do in the middle is just stuff we do for fun. But that is your true job. That's your purpose of being here. make sure there's somebody to replace you.
Well, then I would piggyback off that and be the department that allows kids that are interested in it to do some hands-on training. Because I can tell you over there, the hands-on training they get there versus here can open a lot more eyes, and knowing that something like this is right across the street for down the road when they do become 20, 21, 27-year-olds and know that, hey, I did do that class back in high school. There is that department that was interesting. I can go back and check that out.
Yeah.
There's some hand tie things that happen with under 18-year-olds specifically,
Right,
just because of insurance and all those other people that tell us what we
I'm
can
not
and can't
talking
do.
about putting them in a burn house.
Right. And there are some things there, but there's a lot of workarounds for a lot of those things, and there's still tons of other things to do. The bigger issue with that is that person that commits the time and effort into actually bringing those people up. Like, and that's another one of those things. Like, we should all be trying to lift up everybody in here. There should never be a push down. Like, that's not what we should be doing. That's not who we are. We're lifting up the people that are upside down in their car in a lake. Why can we not lift up each other? And I see it all the time, and it's not our organization. We're not better than any of the rest of them. I see it in all organizations and it's typically those old guys that just pushed people back down to where they think their place is, and you lose people and you lose interest, and everybody's only going to take so much abuse for, I'm giving you my time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears, and you just keep pushing me down.
Yeah, or won't even listen.
Right.
They may have a valid complaint. It may not be valid, but they need to vent. And they're not even given the opportunity to actually be heard or listened to. The analogy I like to use on this is that you have your old dinosaurs on the department, and then you have a new, young, bright-eyed individual bounces in, and they just get continually beat down, crushed, and taught how to be a dinosaur. And then we can't be so shocked when they grow up to become dinosaurs, and then eventually that dinosaur turns into one of the old dinosaurs, and the cycle just repeats. The only way you're going to beat it is to be able to come in and crush all the dinosaur eggs.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
And you can't leave one behind. You got to catch every egg, and you got to crush it, and you've got to completely rebuild up. But the problem is that you're not done after one event. It may take 10, 15, 20 years to truly get out of the cultural change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's no different than we don't check the trucks once when we get them. We check the trucks every month or every week or every day or whenever it is that we check the trucks, because that's a repetitive process that has to do with our continual ability to be ready to do our job. We wouldn't sell that short. Why would we sell short on we tried to teach them once and they didn't learn, so we just walked away. That's not the right answer. You do it 100 times or 1,000 times or whatever it takes, because you can't write those people off. They've made that hardest step by having the initiative to find the non-existent website, to track somebody down, to actually beat in the door, to find somebody here, to get an application, to fill it out, and then become a member. So they did the hard part.
And then to forget to give them anything to actually respond or show up to any calls.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, you're just supposed to know that. That falls under the look at my ass and read my mind category.
Yeah,
you figured that out, didn't you?
I figured it out quick.
Okay.
That's why I just sat around.
Yeah, it is. And the problem is that there's 57 pitfalls before you even get someone in the door. And then you got to deal with about 15 trillion different things that can go sideways at any given time with an individual. And then at the end of the day, you still have to deal with the fact that sometimes it's just not a fit for the organization. And you need to accept that. And it's not necessarily anyone's fault. I would almost argue and challenge that if you're having people particularly continually flush out of your organization, besides, simple things like background checks, criminal history, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're having this continuous cycle of barely being able to get people on your organization, and then when you finally have them on your organization, they're there 2 weeks, 2 months, maybe 2 years, and they're gone, and that's a real common theme, I would still argue that you need to actually look inside the organization and see what's pushing people out and not bringing them in. And that's kind of what ultimately led to this discussion. It's the first time it's being said on any sort of recording, but there's no way this discussion's the first one that's ever happened in the U.S. I hear this statement all the time. We don't get any people. It's too hard. No one wants to do it. No.
I don't buy it either.
People want to do it. Our messaging's wrong. Our format in communicating is wrong. Our outreach is wrong. Our public relations is wrong. Everything in that scenario is wrong. There's no way to actually be able to sit there and do your best impersonation of an ostrich while everything's just falling apart around you and sit there and say that it's everyone else's fault. And it really does. It's the organizations need to do a little self-reflecting and ask the question, well, if I have so many people coming to me, why aren't they staying? Then the second part of that is, if I don't have anyone coming, what's the problem? And again, this isn't single to us. There's very, very, very few volunteer fire departments that I know of that actually have a 100% unequivocally 0% problem with recruiting.
Yeah.
In fact, I've only met 2, and both of them are directly associated with colleges.
And 20 years ago, there was departments everywhere with wait lists. And I bet you'd be hard-pressed to find a single wait list anywhere now. I mean, that's just not a thing. And I think part of it is that the technology in the world has moved past what was the sign out front and the truck running down the road, where all you needed for a marketing campaign 20 years ago, maybe 40 years ago. But today you need more than that. You have to have more than, you have to be doing more than just have a sign and a loud truck. That doesn't get you to where you need to be.
And I still meet people that have no idea that the department here is voluntary.
Yeah.
They just expect it to be a department.
Yeah. I look at that as kind of like a compliment, but it's also it's a double-edged sword.
Right. If you're looking for recruiting, no one's going to try and...
I can assure you that if your organization isn't meeting the public expectation, they're going to know you're volunteer. And so it's a backwards compliment that not a dang person knows a thing that you're volunteer. That means that you are meeting the community standard and expectation of service. So kudos to us. And kudos to all of our forefathers for doing such an awesome job.
Yeah.
The problem is what you just highlighted. No one knows. And, it's not like we live on an island. And it's not that we also live in an area where there's 600 million people either. There's really no reason when you have a small town and that classic urban and rural area mix, and you have a whole bunch of other small little towns around you, that you can't figure out somewhere at how to advertise that you're at least volunteer, to not have at least a community-based knowledge above that. And I can guarantee in our town, I bet you it's as high as 98% don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe 95%. But there's no way it's lower than that.
And I think that's one of those things that you can maybe overcome with that social media presence that's not that call to action, not that that's that brand recognition side of marketing that, you know, Coca-Cola, you know what Coke is, but you still see ads for Coke. And they're keeping their name out there, and they're keeping that brand recognition viable, and where everybody can see what's going on. And I think that's one of those things where social media, more than even a website or those direct marketing campaigns, just that social presence is key, because they've got to know that you're out doing things. They've got to know that you know, save the duck out of the mud puddle in the middle of the road or whatever it is. They've got to know that that stuff happened. You know, they can't just know that that one time when the giant store caught on fire 10 years ago. They've got to know that you're doing things, and it's got to be put in front of them where they see it. And I don't even know that the newsprint is the avenue for that. I think the newsprint is a avenue for some of that, you know, the paper. But I think that social media thing, and I don't know that it's all a blast. I mean, I think it's just that normal everyday stuff. You know, we're doing some training, and there's some pictures, and they get thrown up, and you know, we're doing changing smoke detector batteries, and some pictures go up, and that stuff gets out there for the world to see. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, you need to have that presence. The hard part is, though, understanding the reality of a local fire department isn't going to have 10,000, 20,000, 150,000 followers. It's just not going to get that big. You need to understand that you want the people you care about are the people that are local enough to want to follow you and care about that. You could care less about somebody a state away.
Yeah, no, totally don't care about
The
that.
hard part is when people go into wanting that marketing presence of social media, they want it everywhere. And it's just not going to happen. I mean, I follow one fire department and social media, but that's only because I'm part of a fire department. Tell you, nobody in the football team probably follows a fire department unless their dad or their uncle is on it. So it's understanding, yes, that's what we need. We need to have that continuous, almost magazine subscription of our face and the department's face out there. But you got to understand how high can that bird fly. But you got to make sure that you can get it as high as possible.
Yeah. Now, I follow tons of fire departments, and I follow tons of fire departments that never post anything. Like, I've been following them for years, and they've never posted anything.
And that's the hard thing. You got to understand that your page is, when people come to your page and click that follow button, they're essentially subscribing to what you need to think of yourself as a magazine service. They expect an issue at least once a week. And where, yeah, you still may be following a dead account, but that doesn't really nobody any good if they're not using that account. Nobody's sharing the account. Nobody's being drawn to even go to whatever page they're trying to promote.
Well, and if they actually post something, chances of me finding it in my feed that one time out of 3 years that they actually put a picture on it, I'm shooting right by it, because I'm not used to looking for their logo or
algorithmically, you won't see it because they aren't consistent. If you want to be consistent and at least get out once a week, you as the curator or the company that's running that page needs to be consistent. Because you're right, it's no longer a chronological timeline. I won't post something at 4 o'clock and you're going to see it at 6 o'clock 2 hours later. It's something on mine, both ends, that you have to consistently show that you're worth being shown to a person. If you're not, then, you know, Google's going to send some other ad to that person because they know they can make money off it.
Yeah. Well, I know we kept you way longer than you wanted to stay here when we roped you into this deal, but it's been an awesome discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely feel like I learned stuff.
I know nothing about it. I frankly loathe social media. I don't use it. I don't care about it. So my personal involvement is nothing with it. But I'm in the extreme minority of people in the U.S. that actually don't use social media in any capacity. And there's so many people in our community that are on social media, or their spouse husband, wife, whatever, is on social media. And we may not even be necessarily reaching their kids, but we're reaching their parents. And it's another avenue of contact. And I know that our social media presence is there from the organization, but it is not, I would argue, not fully engaged.
Oh, no. Not even close.
I think that's a very safe way of saying that. And it would be nice to experiment, even if it's just dabbling with trying to recruit through social media, because God forbid if it works.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, because I don't think anybody is great at any of it. I really don't. And if they are, I can't find them because we just emulate it. Why would you reinvent the wheel?
Right.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now I'm scared. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, energy, and effort on that because you definitely were not prepared for getting tossed into that.
It was definitely a wrong time to take pre-workout.
Oh, no, it was a great time. All right. Good night.